back now for another round of the Motherside. And one of the most exciting parts of being a parent is discovering the personality traits, values, and quirks of your child. But many parents also fall into the trap of trying to mold kids into who they want them to be. So here with how to see your child for who they truly are is parenting coach Katherine Sellery. Katherine, so good to see you. You always bring so much great information. How are you today?
Great. How are you today?
I am good, and I'm really excited about this topic. And before we get to your tips, why do you think it's so common for parents to focus on who they want their child to be instead of who their child actually is? Because I think as parents, we kind of already think about what they're going to look like.
We do. I think we get lost in our own hopes and dreams of just having children in our future that we want to hang out with, that we relate to, and so we just get lost in our own ideas rather than just being present to who they are.
Yeah, it's so important for us, I think, as parents to help foster that growth and, for whatever they're going to eventually do. So this leads to your first tip, which is realizing that your child isn't your clone. So why don't we start there?
Exactly. So your child may be your progeny, but they're not your clone. They only share half your DNA, and they do have a unique combination of their own experiences, emotions that are separate and apart from you. But all too often, we parents, and me included, can treat our children as though they should be obedient, orderly, passive, do as they're told. And these attitudes are so subconscious. They stem from what we learned during our childhood. So we need to consciously overcome that.
Well, that's exactly what you're doing with your conscious parenting. And I like the next tip that you have, and it's all about recognizing the yes. What do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is when you're engaging with your child and they say no to you and they're pushing back, if we can get curious about what they're saying yes to inside of themselves, then we open up the lines of communication and we start to connect with them at a heart level as human beings, and when we truly connect, that's when we realize our kids aren't being self-centered or defiant or any of the judgment words that we use to describe behaviors that we don't like if they don't just do as we say. And they're just actually being themselves. They're trying to stay connected to their inner voices. So if we can recognize it and take it to heart and be grateful that our children are just the way they are, then we'll have so much better communication.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, because it's true. The way we were brought up, generations before, you think of your kids and they're supposed to obey you and do as you tell. But because it is a fine line, because you are also a parent and you do need to set boundaries. So can you kind of maybe explain a little bit more how to find that middle ground?
Well, if we stop thinking that children are there to obey us, then we start to shift into the world of let's learn how to be considerate of each other's needs. So our children do not exist to obey us, comply with our rules, or make us happy. As families, we actually collaborate in making rules around everything from screen time to you name it. So each child has their own perspective. They're unique. They have personalities and opinions, likes, dislikes. And if we slip into that, it's only about my way, and I don't want to take into consider your way, then we start to think children aren't people too. But we need to accept that children are people and abandon this idea that it's only about me. As healthy, conscious parents or caregivers, it's our duty to nurture our kids' autonomy, uniqueness with consideration, not forced compliance. That's how we help them to grow and to be happy and successful and the self-sufficient adults that we want them to be.
Yeah. So I know your last step is for us to, as parents, maybe take a step back, but not to detach. So how do we do that, kind of find that fine balance?
It's a living process. But as your children grow up, it's important to take a step back every now and then, especially during the teen years. But earlier too. But when they're teens, it's true that they're just getting to the point where we know they need to manage their own lives. As we trust them to do that and give them the space to do so, we're fostering healthy autonomy, which is allowing them to make their own decisions, even if it means they dye their hair a color that we're not fond of, or they pick a college far from home. That doesn't mean we're not in collaboration. Stepping back isn't about becoming permissive or detached, but it is about taking on more of a consultancy role than a managerial role. The trade-off when we let go of power over is that we can gain influence.
So interesting. Definitely kind of reworking the way that we've thought of parenting. And I hope that this helps, some parents out there, especially those parents of teenagers, as, they're all kind of starting to gain their own confidence and go out and do their own thing in the real world.
Yeah, so it means so much when we trust our children. The more that we trust them, the more that they want to ask us questions.
Yeah.
As long as we don't get fired, we are so much better positioned to have the influence that we want with our kids and their upbringing.
Well, freeparentingbook.com, that's Catherine's new ebook called 7 Strategies to Keep Your Relationship with Your Kids from Hitting the Boiling Point. Katherine Sellery, thank you so much. Make sure you follow her on
Thank you so
Conscious
much,
Parenting.
Eileen.